All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this session. Excited to be in town for Stream Media East. Quick show of hands, how many of you own a Roku device? Sweet. OK. That's a better crowd than I expected. So the last Stream Media West, I had just, that was 5 months ago, I had just joined Roku. So I had like 2 weeks to prepare what the heck I was doing. This, I'm more prepared, and we have some updates. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here. My name's Chris Triganos, and I lead the developer relations team at Roku. So we are very busy right now kind of rebuilding and updating the platform, and specifically trying to make new tools, new samples, and showcase some channels that really we feel like can get the most out of our goal, which is for both of us, we have shared customers, and we want them to love watching your content and to monetize as well. Quick show of hands, how many would identify themselves as a developer? OK, and how many would identify themselves as a content publisher looking to get on Roku? Oh, 50-50, OK. I'm going to attempt the impossible by trying to speak to both of you. And so the developers will be annoyed by some topics, and then the publishers, I think you'll appreciate all of it. So first off, we'll do an overview of the platform, kind of where we're heading, what's new, kind of where our focus is, and then also for publishers and creators, really talk about the pitch to just build a great channel for Roku. Really, we see the engagement, we see the differences in engagement when you really invest in a channel and experience that our customers get value out of. And then lastly, we'll highlight some channels that we feel like in the last year have really stood out in terms of specific features that they've built into their channels. So most of you have Rokus in the room. At a high level, we want to be the operating system for television. So with desktop, you have Mac, you have Windows. For mobile, you have iOS and Android. Really, no one has set out to be the operating system for television. And we'll actually talk about some of the recent pivots that we've done in the last 2 years that have really gone beyond maybe the Roku device that you're familiar with. And so ever since we spun out of Netflix, we were their hardware division about 6 years ago. Ever since then, we've had about almost 10 years of building devices, low-cost devices to stream content. So we have everything from a Roku One, which you can pick up at the store for about $30, all the way to a Roku 4 and our brand new streaming stick, which is more for a 4K audience, real large TV audience as well. And so we're always focusing on how can we get low-cost hardware in addition to having a large span of, we have lots of different types of customers, and we're trying to reach out to all of them. And channels on Roku do work on all these devices that we sell. So many of you are familiar with the Roku devices. You get the Roku One, the streaming stick, the 2, the 3, the 4. What a lot of people don't realize is about 2 years ago, we added a new offering for Roku, which is we license our operating system to television manufacturers. So if you go into a Best Buy or Walmart or Target, if you look at the different brands, Insignia, LG, Sharp, all these different brands, a lot of them you'll see they're powered by Roku. They're Roku TVs. So essentially, we license our operating system, and we give them our reference design. We work with them to build the TV, and then every one of them, when they activate that box, those are all Roku accounts. And every purchase made on that television is a Roku purchase. And so with that spread, we've actually added an additional thing that's called Roku Power. Essentially, it was our original international play. So you can say Sky in Britain or Telstra in Australia. They have a closed audience, the pay TV operators. We've worked with them, and they actually have a white labeled box, which is actually a Roku device. In addition to, we actually build the channel store for them, and they choose which partners go in there. And so to give you a sense, our customers, we haven't actually talked a lot about these numbers. So a lot of these numbers are actually pretty new for the public. So I'm excited to share, but Roku customers love their Rokus. So we streamed in the last year alone, we streamed 5.5 billion hours of television. And to give you a sense, that's a 72% increase from the year before. And so we're really benefiting from the shift, from traditional serving of television to streaming. For us, it's beneficial for you no matter which streaming box you're using. In the end, Roku is a great solution across your spread as you cut cable. And then also, this is the latest NPD survey. We outstream all our competition in smart TVs, especially for Google and Amazon combined. And so again, people love their Rokus. People, especially you think of the wide audience. This is not just a tech audience. This is just you got your audience going to electronic stores, picking up Rokus. You have people that are more interested in the 4K experience. They're picking up a Roku 4, and that wide spread of content. It does show in our stats. And then we like to focus on. Are you raising your hand? The stats before? This is based off the NPD's latest survey. I don't have the exact breakdown for countries. This next one is international, right? So we don't focus on. We have a lot more boxes out there. We have a lot more Rokus out there. We tend to focus for this stat on 30-day active users. So across 10 countries, we have 10 million active accounts, which is 30-day active. And we work with a lot of pay TV operators. So a lot of operators, they want to give their customers a streaming experience. They have certain partners that they want in their regions. And so in the U.S., we have TWC, we have Spectrum, we have Dish. Comcast just announced they're bringing Comcast Xfinity to Roku. And then internationally, you get the Sky box. That is just a Roku box that's labeled with their branding, and then Telstra in Australia. So we partner both with traditional pay TV operators in addition to OTT content.
Any timeline on when next one will go?
We have a lot more coming this year. So soon. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Those the Sky deal. The Sky deal has been around for a couple of years, and Telstra rolled out I think a year and a half ago, and we have lots of deals in the pipeline right now. So Roku TV, again, for us, it's actually better for you to have a TV that already has Roku baked into it. So you'd imagine if you, we're going to have over 60 SKUs this year. So I think currently, last year we had about 40 SKUs on market. This year we're going to hit 60. And you go into a given, a Best Buy or Target, there's typically about 90 SKUs on display. Typically, if you go into any of those, about 20 of them are going to be actually Roku-powered TVs. And so Roku is in a lot of places that you don't actually notice until you look at the details, and it's powered by Roku TV. And so there's a lot more TV manufacturers coming as well. And to give you a sense, this shift in the last year and a half, I think within 1 year, from 2014 to 2015, we've gained 8% of the market share for smart TVs. And you can expect that is going to be growing, as a lot of TV manufacturers do not want to build their own OS. So with the exception of maybe Samsung Smart TV, they're pretty invested in their platform. You notice LG just rolled out. A lot of these pay TV operators have their OS, but they are also rolling out Roku TV versions of that hardware as well. And so why this matters for developers is our focus is getting the best distribution we can get. So then when you bring a channel to market, you can bring it into the pay TV operator regions. It's built in, it's in the TV, and it's also across all our all our devices as well. Okay, so recap for building channels. How many have built a Roku channel before? Okay. So everyone else, I'm going to pitch on why you should build a Roku channel. So at a high level, to actually test locally to build your own channel, you need a Roku device, also a Roku account, and like all things streaming, if you don't have working internet, you're kind of cooked. And then you want to spend some time in our SDK docs. And so the way to think about it is the SDK is actually built into every Roku on market, every Roku TV on market. The way you activate it is you use our super secret contra code. You just, on your remote control, you'd hit home, 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 up, up, right, left, right, left, right. It's going to go through I think 3 screens where you actually can directly connect from a browser to your Roku, and you can install your own channels directly onto that Roku. And as a developer, you can test out your own sample streaming channels or games or any of the platforms you get. It is on developer.roku.com. And so, in addition, we've just relaunched our Getting Started guide for Roku development, which walks you through how to use our SDK, and we have a lot of sample code there as well. So you can just go to developer.roku.com, and there'll be a big Getting Started link, but this is a short URL, kind of short URL. It's kind of confusing, I guess, that you can get started as well. here's a sample of like one sample channel we've built, which we've taken every different type of widget, dialog box, streaming sample, and we've packed it into one sample developer channel. You can pick apart that channel and actually look at all the source code. That's a mixture of XML, which we'll talk about. It's called Scene Graph XML, and then also BrightScript, which is our scripting language for fetching content from the cloud.
Why did you develop your own language?
Why did we? Okay, I could tell with your smile you were going to ask the same question too. Why did we develop our own language? So when Roku was first coming out, these devices are, a lot of them are on par with like a Raspberry Pi. These are pretty, we're trying to focus on how can we build as closely to the hardware stack as possible. And so for BrightScript, it's a pretty low weight language. It's a scripting language. If you look at the syntax, any programming skills, you'll feel pretty comfortable based on other languages. I can't speak to why we built it. I can say that our founder built it. And all our channels are on it, yes. Sample code helps too. And so that's what I'm focusing a lot on this year, is providing fully baked sample code. And like, honestly, for me, I need to look at a fully working channel that's pulling from a feed, and I spend a lot of time there. And exactly, yeah. And so, yeah, sdkdocs.roku.com, that's where you can get our API reference. You can get all the different details for Scene Graph. So spend some time in there. And then for publishers and creators, I think we try to focus on having a lot of the features you'd expect in any channel ecosystem built on the box. So you are building a channel, and our goal is that works across all the different streaming devices and TVs that we have. Universal search is a big one. So the concept is a shared customer is looking up an actor, a movie title, an episode title. For channels that have built in that search functionality, say you type in an actor's name, we will actually tell that customer all the different channels that have that content. And so our goal is, as channels adopt our universal search, we want to deep link straight into the episodic content you have, or short form or movie content. Ads and promotion, we do a lot, around 3 weeks ago when Game of Thrones premiered, HBO did a full theme takeover. We do lots of I guess half of it would be audience development. That's the team here in New York. And the other half is our actual Roku Ad Framework, which powers, it's Nielsen Analytics powered ad solution for anyone streaming on Roku. And then lots of other features like in-app billing, in-app purchasing. And then discovery is interesting. The concept is, as you're searching for content in search, you can say, oh, I want to follow this actor or follow this movie. And then in your feed, we'll tell you when any of your channels have new content based on your search. Search and discovery, I went through most of this. This is just actually a UI screenshot of what it looks like. So you search for the Lego Movie, and then we'll tell you all the different channels. You can either buy that with, or it comes with your subscription. And then Roku Ad Framework is a big focus for us. So I'd say half or more of all our top channels on the Roku platform are integrated with our ad solution. And the idea there is, as a company, Roku, we know the most details of our customers, right? And we have an extension of our SDK called the Roku Ad Framework, which helps you better target customers. So this is, we worked with Nielsen to be the first OTT provider, OTT solution with, in-app analytics, and then also the ability to, send actually from the Roku channel, send up all the Nielsen tags and all the VAST tags for you to, better target customers for video advertising. And then in-app purchasing, a lot of our channels are doing in-app purchasing. Every time you create a Roku account, a credit card is required. So all our active users, there's payment on file. So for us, we want the simplest way for a customer to buy your content in-app or pay to install or sign up for a new subscription. And so essentially, customers hit like a 4-digit PIN on their remote, and then the payment's made through Roku. Our cut is about 20%, but then we deal with all the payment, all the billing, and we send you a check for all that. there's a these are some of the channels. I would say I can't give you a breakdown because how long ago did you create your account? Can you imagine last about 2 years? It's a required field to credit payment information, either PayPal or credit card. So all new customers have card on file. And then we can skip over this. This is the concept. We're seeing the trend of skinny bundles. People want to cut cable, but they might want to have, Hulu, CBS, and HBO. And so we're seeing a lot of pay TV operators providing the skinny bundle, typically about $40 to $50 a month, including internet access, and they're actually providing their customers with a Roku. So TWC in New York did a trial this spring where you could get a cable box, or instead you could get a Roku box, and you would be authorized into all those different apps. And we're seeing a lot of different companies doing that as well. And so at high level, the way it works is the way Partners connects with our audience is you have the device, which has the SDK built in at the firmware level, and then most of the recommendations, the search, the ability to install, that's all powered by our cloud services team. And so in the cloud, we're handling all the in-app billing functionality for your developer dashboard, all the reporting, and then all channel store and all purchasing, in addition to account and details. That's all done in the cloud, and it's developer.roku.com where you can actually set up new products, see reports on how sales activity has been, et cetera. And so for publishers, we really want to see, a lot of publishers probably launched a channel in 2011, 2012. There's been a ton of updates to the platform since then, so we would love to see updated channels in addition to new partners coming to the platform. So really, for us, we can tell the difference between, let me reset, the experience a customer has in terms of UI, in terms of that 10-foot lean back experience. We see two equal channels, the design and the UI, and really thinking about that experience tailored to your brand makes a huge difference in terms of engagement, how long they will keep watching, recommending videos, auto-playing afterwards, pre-buffering the video so it feels pretty seamless when they press play. All those different factors, really the developer controls how monetizable and how engaged their customers are with our platform and with your channel. And so overview for Scene Graph. Roku Scene Graph is it's really, a lot of people call it like SDK 2. It is our new SDK, which allows you to completely design and build channels. So the workflow we're seeing working with a lot of the development shops and independent developers is you design your channel in Photoshop, and even how the experience should go from different panels and scenes. All that's done in Photoshop. And then you build a static version of that channel using Scene Graph, which is, if you have any comfortability with front-end development, you look at a sample channel, you'll understand, okay, I lay out my overhang, I lay out label lists, I lay out grids, how many posters should be in columns, all that you do in XML, and then use BrightScript to actually fetch the feed and render the HLS stream or render your MPEG content or audio content. And so we're really trying to separate that design layer from the logic layer in the background. And then I'll show some samples, but a lot of the base components, layout such as label lists, dialog boxes, all those things are they're built in. So you can just use our dialog box, but you can completely skin and theme that based on your branding. You can even customize the keyboard so it looks like how your app looks across other platforms. And then one thing we launched with Roku OS 7, that's our new OS that came out last fall, is you no longer have to build for SD. So essentially, you can design for HD or FHD experiences. And then if you say, I want to downscale for SD, Roku's OS will actually downscale the video in addition to switch it to 0.9 pixel aspect ratio. So it'll render on a composite TV. So for us, our focus is we want everyone to have a good streaming experience. So a lot of people buy a $30 Roku and they plug it into, all of a sudden your old TV is a smart TV box. And so we'll handle a lot of the fallback solutions for resolution.
Is that on the server side?
It's on the box.
On the box?
Yeah, it's on the box itself, yeah. Yeah, it was a big update, not having to make a million assets for different resolutions. Personally, I typically build usually HD, and I'll upscale and downscale, but a lot of our development shops will build HD and FHD assets, and then SD they'll downscale. Yes. A lot of those are built in our pre-based components and layouts. Yeah. Including, I guess what I shouldn't have mentioned too is a lot of you are probably dealing with the upcoming CVA Compliance regulation, text-to-speech type capabilities, all that. Now that we've moved to an XML-based SDK, all of that, like speak out loud for all those components, that will just, we'll take care of that for the developer, right? We'll speak out the names of everything as I think that legislation comes into effect in December. Captioning hasn't changed, but we have kind of two ways you can do captioning. We have that pre-built caption feature, which you can control some of the formatting. We also have, we'll fire events so that you could choose how to render that captioning. I know some customers want 3 levels versus 2 levels of captioning, row after row. So you can either use the captioning we have, customize it a little bit, or you can just take the events and build it yourself, yeah. Yeah. So as of the fall, we've totally baked in localization support. And you can either trigger that or it'll happen from device, including from captioning. So as long as you have the captioning for both streams, you'll be able to toggle. Yes, we support multiple, yes. Yep. You can control it. We have we support multi-audio tracks for video as well, so you can switch the different languages. And we have sample code on the dev site I can send you. It's on the developer site. So some of the highlights, think of all this, like the XML features, all this stuff is just a extension of just Roku OS, like our new operating system. So a lot of developers we notice will take our base components, so they'll take label lists, they'll take poster grids. They might want text overlaid on photos, but they might switch it based on the size of the TV. All of those you could take and then customize and build your own components. So we are seeing a lot of developers building kind of their own libraries of reusable code, and then we've just enabled the ability that you can host that on your own server. So when a channel loads at runtime, you can fetch additional components like your own library of reusable code for a more dynamic, on-the-fly experience based on that channel. And then in-app billing components. So we're trying to make making an in-app purchase a lot easier. In addition to our Roku Ad Framework supports both client-side server ad insertion and client-side ad insertion and server-side ad insertion. So most of the major ad providers are SDK. As long as you tell us the URL, all the tags you want, and your ID, we'll either interject the ads into the video player or we'll just take your server-side stitched feed. Tuner API, we'll talk a little bit about that. That's the first of our Roku TV APIs that we've opened up to developers, the ability for a channel to actually change the digital tuner, and you can, inside your channel, actually have a TV tuner experience. And then some localization and the idea that you can go across scenes, and then with the global node, you can go across scenes and you can keep that state. So you're starting to see things like built-in music players as you're going through audio, or things that go across states. Yeah. Yes, that's actually that's a requirement, and that's built into the Ads SDK. If you go to if you just like Google search Roku Ad Framework developers, that's all in there. But yes, Tribeca is disabled. All that is mandatory for most of our partners. And so definitely probably don't need to show this crowd, but if you've never done Roku channel building before, we don't host your video. We actually don't have much relationship with your content. You kind of come to Roku. If you're a game developer, you can probably just build it all into a channel. But if you're a video or content publisher, you have your content hosted somewhere. The platform, Brightcove, JW Player, Vimeo Pro, you have your content somewhere, and then you are inside your app basically fetching from a feed somewhere, JSON, XML, you're fetching that feed and rendering. Most people here are already doing that for many platforms, but at a high level, I get that question a lot. Okay, where do I upload my video for my Roku channel? You don't. You kind of come with your content already ready. Scene graph, we've already really talked about this, but essentially when you're looking at any of the modern channels on Roku that are built in like the last year or so, they're all being marked up in XML. including all the attributes for the different elements. So previously with Roku, especially our older templates, you would have to, it was very linear in its approach, right? So it was very procedural. So now you can have video playing inside a screen. You can have multiple elements on screen, and Scene Graph is rendering it all at the same time. And then you can also listen, based on events or based on, let's say you're activating an account, the Roku channel will listen and then wait to activate it. Kind of go into a lot of the pre-based components that we've already built. So obviously images, text, video, audio, all that's basic. But then we do have things like fully built, overhang panel, like having a grid, having a label list. All those are kind of built. I'll show you actually an example in the next screen. But different ways of doing navigation. You can build your own layouts, or you can, like I said, start with one of these, and then you can kind of customize it. A lot of people want to have like a multi-grid, kind of full horizontal width navigation, but at the top build like sliding hero slots. All that you would lay out in XML yourself based off your design. So design first, build it in Scene Graph, stitch it up with BrightScript. And so this is a sample. This is a very basic channel. I guess this looks pretty similar to even Roku's home screen. You can customize like an overhang. You can lay out a label list. You have a grid of posters. But if you're pulling from a content feed, this is definitely too small for this screen, sorry. But the idea is all this is just, it's being fetched in real time from a feed. So when the channel loads, you see a splash screen. It is fetching all the content from an XML or JSON feed, and it is rendering on the go inside your channel. And then this is one of the sample channels in the Getting Started guide. This is a fully baked channel that is pulling from, this was like a sample Limelight feed I had, but this will work. As long as you have an MRSS feed, you can change the sample MRSS feed we have in this app, and you'll see your content, everything from the background art to the descriptions, all of that will, it's probably one of the best places to get started. How many of you have successfully passed channel certification with Roku? Okay, so like all things, if you QA your work before submitting to our channel store, you'll have a less painful process than if you use us for your QA. So essentially, we have a list of probably 7 different sections of all the, we just released all the different things we check for in a channel before we publish it in the channel store. We just relaunched this, I think last week, version 2. So we are even getting very specific in terms of the actual unit testing we run on every channel. So for any of you that are trying to get on the Roku platform, obviously you'll want to go through that. We're trying to make it as clear as possible. So that's all on our developer site.
How long should you expect that it will take you from
It depends on how big your how big of an update it is.
first time out?
What channel? Go Love Sportscast. We've seen as quick as, it's typically a week or less. If you're a larger partner, if this is a big update, it might take more. If you have a managed partner manager, if you have a partner manager, it depends. I would say give yourself a couple weeks to be safe. But if you've done, our biggest headaches is if you haven't kind of checked and QA'd before you submit to us. I had one partner say, "Oh, we just use you guys as our QA," and I don't want to hear that. Yes, so kind of. We just launched the new checklist, right? And we just launched every single thing we test. And I think in the next 2 weeks, I'll actually share each one of those things we check. I'm going to actually, it's like a 100-page PDF that our QA team actually goes through. But that I can give you now. I will post it on the blog in like a week or so. I just got to do one last pass through it. So trying to make it more transparent. Also for, I guess, half of you are developers, one thing I am interested in is it really affects our lives when a publisher chooses to go with a great developer versus a developer that is just trying to kind of phone in the Roku submission process. So I am looking for new developers that have built Roku channels, that are interested in building Roku channels, specifically in this developer list, which eventually I'll probably rename it the Roku Certified Developer List, but we are trying, our BD team is constantly getting new partnerships, new deals for new channels, and the first question is, okay, can you recommend a great developer? I'm updating this weekly. And in this list, it's like all the contact info, in addition to, do they know Roku billing? Do they know the Roku Ad Framework? Have they done search? So I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for great developers to get leads and for channel publishers to go with a developer that we're familiar with or we know has built some quality channels. And I would expect in time this list is going to grow a lot, and obviously the more channels you build, the more leads you get. And this is a mixture of development shops in addition to independent developers that might just want to do the billing integration for a partner. We notice a lot of channel publishers might use a developer for a specific part of the project. So yeah, the channel developer list, I guess that's bit.ly/Roku-dev list, but definitely talk to me afterwards if you're interested in getting recommendations. And so some highlights. These are channels that we've noticed in the last probably 8 months that have relaunched or built from scratch, all using our new SDK and really focusing on that multi-device. You know, it works across all our devices, and the stats for each one of these have really stood out amongst the platform. So one of the first ones is the team at A&E Networks, the in-company agency building OTT experiences. They built History Vault. So this is a subscription service where, I don't know, it's like $8 a month and you get all of History Channel's documentaries, like in Roku across different platforms. They built a pretty immersive experience, so you can add it yourself, try out the trial. It's pretty solid. Like, you think about a 10-foot experience, it's a lot of developers who've done a lot of iPhone and Android work come to the living room experience thinking, okay, it's going to look very similar. And you know, there is a reality that you come home from work, you're watching television, that lean back experience, trying to help people find what they're looking for, what they want to watch, and doing good recommendations. History Vault's good. Travel Savvy, this is just a small independent shop that they had lots of video content. They took the sample channel of the RSS feed, and they plugged in their content. So we also want content creators to feel like they can build a Roku channel quickly. It's actually pretty good content, but the experience is very straightforward. This is small, but how many people have heard of Pluto TV before? Okay, so Pluto TV, it's actually awesome. So Pluto TV, they took a lot of this different streaming content. So think the live video for Weather Channel, Vice, all these different like more internet brands of video, and they've turned it into a live TV experience. So it's like your typical cable, episode guide. So you keep clicking through, and you can watch new content. When we announced in our developer newsletter last month that the Tuner API is available for all developers, so what that means is, I mentioned it before, but any channel, if you detect that you're on a Roku TV, you can control the digital tuner. So Pluto realized that Tuner API was available, and so inside, you're going through Vice, you're going through online streaming news, they're actually weaving in your local digital TV stations into their guide. Pretty impressive the way they've done it, since they have a pretty good integration with our ads framework as well. Float Left, they work with CBS. That was the first time the Super Bowl was streamed over OTT, so we were really excited about that. Specifically, it's a mixture of live TV and episodic content. And so, yeah, try that channel out. They did a pretty solid job on kind of the way they're doing Big Hero featuring in addition to lots of different swim lanes for categories. DigiFlare, they did a solid job on CNN Go. So CNN Go and DigiFlare kind of announced together the CNN Go app, which is a mixture of like you can watch CNN live, but obviously with a lot of different Turner properties like CNN, you have a mixture of live news, but Anthony Bourdain content and different episodic content. They've done a great job with like the kind of the navigational overlays as you're watching the live television. And then lastly, Tribeca Shortlist. This is the Lionsgate. They built. I actually love the app. It's called Tribeca. It's Tribeca Shortlist. And it is like upcoming content for independent movies. In addition to, they interview tons of directors, actors on what are their favorite content. So this is a completely customized scene graph experience. And they partnered with the guys at Ratio. Ratio up in Seattle built this channel. And so we launched, I just announced it on our blog 2 weeks ago, we launched a new plugin for Eclipse. We're going to be building them for more developer tools, and I think next up is probably be Atom, We're considering one for Sublime. There's a basic one for Sublime now, but essentially this has all the sample code pre-built in. So you can say new Roku project. You can say which sample it'll go. It has a autocomplete for BrightScript and for Scene Graph. And then you can click run, and it will actually side load the app instantly on your Roku player. So for myself, I'm usually taking designs and making a static version of channel. So it requires me to constantly keep side loading a channel. So plugins like this make it a little easier. So yeah, try it out. And so to kind of get involved, we've really, in the last 6 months, heavily invested in trying to make it easier to get on the platform, to update your apps. So the ways you can find out about news, when our certification deadlines are coming up, new features you should take advantage of is obviously the blog, which is blog.roku.com/developer, in addition to Roku Dev on Twitter. And then for those of you who aren't developers for Roku, we have a monthly developer newsletter which showcases channels, talks about new SDK updates, certification deadlines. Just enroll in the developer program. So if you have a Roku account, you'd go to developer.roku.com and you would just register, and then everyone in the developer group. To give you a sense, we have over 80,000 developers on the Roku platform. The thing people forget is we have 3,000 public channels. We have 30,000 private channels, which is a whole different conversation. But you can get your content pretty quickly on the Roku platform, and the audience of developers is a lot larger than people realize. So yeah, join our newsletter. I think we have some pretty useful updates there. And yeah, thanks for coming to the talk. I appreciate it. Any questions? Yes.
Some of the apps look like some of the apps that I've seen looks like the same, like on their Samsung TV, looks like the exact same format. Are people like converting to your XML language, or is there a way that they can do Java?
What channels were you looking at?
Like if I look at like Netflix, for instance, or Hulu, it looks like, did they rewrite their app?
Netflix and Hulu are tough examples, because I think Netflix and Hulu come to all of us and say, hi, here's our C code. Give us half of your box memory, and we'll render it ourselves. And we say, okay, thank you. We do integrate, so it'll look pretty similar across all platforms. The only differences is more in the back end, like the billing might be processed differently on a Roku than another channel. But yeah, if you have TVs, players, all of them side by side, I think with the exception of Apple TV, which is honestly, it's a little bit more templatized than most Netflix stuff. It's Netflix and Hulu usually look the same everywhere. But to your point, I do see a lot of developers taking one design and then creating it on the different connected TV devices, maybe sometimes slightly different. The two approaches I see is some shops actually Hulu is a good example, so the new Hulu connected TV team, they are creating an experience. They are coming up, they're going to be creating experience for each one of their platforms. And I see others that have one and then they'll kind of slightly modify it. So it depends. I just want to make sure channels are designing first and then coding it later. It's tough for a platform when you see, I don't want to see templatized. I want to see an experience that is reflective of your kind of channels across other platforms. Yes.
Can you speak a little about the analytics you can see about monetization, AVOD, SVOD, TVOD, maybe even the relationship if we're launching a channel today? What do you think we're trending towards? More an AVOD model or an SVOD? If it is TVOD, is there a dollar amount that you're seeing that's transacting? $19 like a traditional transactional element, such as you see on iTunes, or less 10 or 5. That's something in-house that we're always battling and trying to figure out which model to go with or where it's not.
I'd say the most popular models on Roku right now are AVOD and SVOD. Just because, signing up for customers is pretty straightforward, especially with our in-app billing. And then our ads team, our ad framework is pretty comprehensive. We've pretty much built out for all the different ad networks you would use. It's just going to work. TVOD, we have some. I think AVOD is probably the most straightforward to get on. SVOD, we have fully baked examples that you can get started with. I can say that we take about 20% cut for in-app purchases. AVOD's interesting. We have two different models, right? So we have one model where you can, let's say before we had the ad framework, we'd figure out a rev share split, we'd do a cut. As we're kind of growing, as we're kind of maturing the ad solution, you'll probably see an option that you might want Roku to represent your whole ad inventory. And so you'd get more of a split. So we're kind of figuring out some options there, but I'd say AVOD and SVOD is definitely where our focus is. In terms of TVOD purchases, it really depends because you're essentially registering the products on your side. One trend we are seeing it's more with SVOD is we are seeing a lot of people want to copy the Hulu model of having multiple tiers. So okay, yeah, for $7 a month, I'll get this tier, but there's like an in-app call to action to unlock like a new, content or a new package from there. So depends. We can talk more in details based on your channel afterwards if you want. Okay. Other questions? Really depends how your setup is. We've seen a lot of platforms where OVP platforms where you manage your content in one place, and they're building channels for you across different platforms. It just depends on the quality of that. Those channel builder kind of very easy to manage a CMS, and then you've built different channels, and then they're all asking for a feed. But there are some solutions where you can control even the look and layout from a platform. I noticed ourselves. I think this year we'll be trying to figure out ways to make it more and more easier for you to bring your content to the Roku platform. So we'll see. Yes. Yes, I'm glad you asked that question. So Hispanic content coming into the Roku platform. Foreign language content is a really big deal for us. So as of 4 weeks ago, we had a 4-year moratorium on all foreign language content on Roku. So previously we had a on the US channel store. So essentially, when we were trying to go international 4 or 5 years ago, we signed an exclusive with Dish. I know some developers are familiar with this, where only Dish could serve foreign language content in the US channel store. We have different international channel stores. That has now expired, so pretty much a big focus for us is bringing foreign language content into, it's a great way if you have content, regional content, to bring it into the US and actually monetize directly. So right now I'd say our focus is definitely Latino content, and also we're seeing a big uptick in APAC, both Indian, Hindi content, and a lot of action from the Philippines. It's completely free. So, and that's another thing. It doesn't cost anything to build a Roku channel. If you're doing in-app billing and in-app purchasing, we'll take a 20% cut, but we'll handle all the billing for you. And if you're doing ads, if you're already coming with your ad server, you would just plug it in and it would work. Yeah, that'd be great, yeah. Our BD team would love to work with you too. We're trying really hard to find great content as it just lifted. Yes? We'll see. That's a tricky question. I think we've seen some, I guess two things I've seen in prototype from partners that is very interesting is since we did move to XML, at least for the design layout, I saw a crazy demo of an After Effects to scene graph and BrightScript converter. It worked, but it feels like there's that. I saw a V8 to BrightScript converter for JavaScript, V8 engine built in BrightScript. That was interesting. I would say we're not against it, but just trying to evaluate how would it perform. The hardest thing is the spread of devices we need to support for every channel. And without a doubt, BrightScript will render on 8 or 6-year-old devices. Separate us out from maybe another platform that 3 years ago had a device, and then this year they're saying all that's legacy, and here's our new device. since we want the widest spread of possible of consumers, that is the stack. Personally, off the record, I would love to see JavaScript as well, but we'll see. Yeah, any other questions? The full list is on the developer site, but our approach typically is all of them. So usually every one of our partners has a different request. I know the one streaming codec we're very close to launching is Dash Live. But other than that, I mean, all the other ones we handle, including audio formats as well. And then for DRM, I mean, I've seen everything. Adobe, all the different DRMs, we have those as well. But if you just go to the video codec section of our dev site, I have like an exhaustive list of what we support. Other questions? Yes?
You talk about have a lot of private channels. Can you talk about that? What are the examples? So that's not good.
So the question is, what's the deal with private channels? So private channels, all right. Public channels, you create as a developer, you test a channel, you build it, you submit it for certification. We go through a pretty long, exhaustive list of just making sure our customers are going to have a good experience with your product. And then we put you in the channel store, which is pretty much how you find apps, how you find channels on Roku. For beta testing, for kind of a lot of corporate intranets use it, you can create a private channel, which essentially is you take that same package and you just say create private channel, and you instantly have a URL that you can distribute to anyone yourself. And so that allows you to pretty much have a channel on Roku. It's not listed anywhere, but you do have a URL, and if a customer takes that URL, clicks on it, it'll say, do you want to add this channel to Roku? We saw a lot of development shops send a customer like, hey, here's a beta, here's a sample of the upcoming channel. I've seen a lot of companies use it. I didn't realize in hospitals and schools, when you have those televisions with like sliding images, like announcements and calendars, a lot of times that's just a very basic Roku app with just 10 rotating images. If you go on Reddit, if you just Google Roku private channels, there's always tons of random content. We're constantly playing whack-a-mole with sports, DMC takedowns and stuff like that. But it's a way to publish a channel instantly. Other questions? All right, I have a ton of Roku stickers for your laptop if you want, and I will answer any BrightScript questions after this. Thank you.